Welcome back to the Undrafted and Unqualified Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Anthony, here with Vinny again. Little delay. We took a week off, just need a little break. We're back though. We got an episode for you this week. We're getting into our summer kind of, schedule again, similar to last year. So fun episode. We're finally in June. We're in June, so we're here. It feels like we're finally in like the peak of the off season. Lot of news to talk about with that because we missed a week. So we do have a lot to cover today. And then we're going to be doing our value picks. And, I'll go over last year's picks and we'll talk about that. But this will be a fun one. We'll do the values today, based on current ADP. So obviously that can change in time over the summer. But yeah, should be good. Vinny, anything to add or should we hit the news?
No, I just like you said, it's June and I'm starting to feel the fantasy buzz again. I've had a couple rookie drafts and dynasty finish up, so
All right.
definitely starting to get back in the mindset, looking for trades, this looking for value or creating our values. So we're close. We're close.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for fun, I did my like preliminary rankings today, just like shooting some of them out just for fun. So that'll be
Yep.
fun to do later down the summer too. But all right, let's get into some of this news here. We got a lot to talk about. First piece, Josh Jacobs got arrested, and I think since he has been released. But what do you make of this news here?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not good news for himself personally, and like, of course, whatever. I think it was some sort of assault that he got charged with, or accused of. But from a fantasy perspective, I guess like he's back on the field. Like you said, he was released. He's been at practice. So it doesn't look like it's going to have any implications on this season in terms of pending suspension, but I mean, it's never good news to see a guy in legal trouble or with the police or getting arrested. But yeah, as a Packers fan, I don't like to see it, but
Yeah.
he will be back and it looks like he's going to play.
Yeah, I just keep an eye on Chris Brooks and Marshawn Lloyd are the backups. Honestly, like
Yep.
neither one's really enticing.
No.
So, if Jacobs misses time, honestly, maybe they throw a little more. They'll want to run, but they might lean on Love a little more if they need to, if Jacobs just has to miss time for suspension or everything. But right now, I'm trying to just like wait it out. We'll see if anything comes to, and then
Mhm.
we can kind of judge. So. I'm not super excited to draft Jacobs anymore, but at the same time, like right now, there's nothing going on, so you gotta
Mhm.
just kind of wait it out.
Yeah, I did pick up Brooks in one of my dynasty leagues. I saw him
Smart,
linger in there, so picked him up.
smart call. The next piece of news finally happened. AJ Brown, New England Patriot.
I
We
forgot that we hadn't announced it.
we
It's been
still
a
it's
week.
been a week. That's why
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
we'll talk about the Miles Garrett trade too, both of
Oh
which we
wow,
haven't
yep.
talked about yet. But yeah, random Monday in June, they said the NFL said let's spice things up, and yeah, AJ Brown is officially a Patriot. We've been kind of expecting this for a while. I think it was a little bit of an overpay, first and fifth for the age he's at. I think he's what like 20. Is he 29?
I let me check.
He
I
might
believe
be.
he's 28,
Okay.
but
Maybe he'll
I
be
don't.
29 by the season starts. But either way, he is starting to get to those like last few years of his 20s, which, so then how many years do you get of AJ Brown? But this is going to be, I think, an incredible year for him. Best deep ball QB he's played with, I think, in his career in Drake May. This is great news for Drake May. Great news all around. He's going to be the one. And they actually came out today in camp and said he's playing a little bit more of the Z role versus the X. They're putting Booty outside on the X role. So this could be huge. AJ Brown could be all over the field. I'm going to be very bullish on this duo, especially as a Pats fan. Um, but yeah, I think this is a great upgrade for AJ Brown, great upgrade for Drake May. I think you do have to downgrade Jalen Hurts a bit. But yeah, the other fantasy implications you got besides those three?
I guess Makai Lemon gets a bit of a boost, but like you
Mhm.
said, we were all kind of expecting this, and
Right.
obviously them drafting him, you sort of. But now that it's just actually happened, you can kind of confirm that he'll have a bigger role. But other than that, no, I think you covered him.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but Yeah, I at first I did think it was an overpay, because you see that first round tag, and then guys like Devonte Adams, like after his years on Green Bay, go for a second round pick. Guys like Jalen Waddle go for a third round pick. It's just a little surprising to see a guy that's like not at the end of his prime. Like you said, I expect a couple more good years from him, but um, kind of fits the mold of some of those names and to get a first. But the piece that I think is important is that it's a 2028 first. They avoided the kind of loaded draft class of 2027, so they'll still be able to pick in that one. But either way, I expect the Patriots to be pretty good these next couple of years, and like are obviously Super Bowl contenders after making it. So I wouldn't really sweat the pick as much now. Like you get a number one receiver for Drake May, so echo all the things you said. I expect a massive year from him. I have a lot of ownership in Dynasty, so I'm really excited about next season for AJ.
Yeah, it's funny to see all the first round picks getting traded now, right? Like Waddle, I think it was a first and a third. And so Waddle,
Really? I thought it
yeah.
was a third and a fourth. I was looking into it.
No, the Broncos didn't have a first this year. Maybe it was a first and fourth, but they traded their first, pick 30 this year. So that's why the Dolphins had two firsts this year in the draft. So or maybe did they have three? I don't know. But
Oh,
they
they
had at
did. They
least.
traded a first, a third, and a fourth. Okay, so I
Yeah,
read that
they
wrong.
they
Wow,
traded a
that's
Hall. They traded a Hall.
yeah.
AJ Brown was a first. I mean, Sauce Gardner was what, two firsts, and Miles Garrett, we'll talk about in a minute, was first. So a lot of
Mhm.
firsts are getting shipped around, and maybe that's just what teams are doing right now. Maybe that's kind of the meta, I guess you could say. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, huge for AJ Brown and the Patriots. Um, Drake London got a massive payday. I think that's great for his stock. I think that's great for fantasy football. Great for him. So congrats to
Yeah.
Drake London, third highest paid wide receiver now in the league.
Hmm.
Christian Watson, massive payday. He also got extended after they extended Jaden Reed. I think that's big for him as well, right? Christian Watson just got paid like a bag. So it's like they're paying him to be the guy. I think to me, Christian Watson, who we're not bringing him up as our values today, but I think he could be based on the fact that, he was really good last year too. And we kind of just forget about that because it's Christian Watson always hurt.
Yeah, I feel like being a fan of a team, you always have those guys that like you view them differently because you watch them and sometimes it works in their favor, and not like you really like the player, you really dislike the player. I feel like he kind of falls on the side of disliking more so because of the fact that you're right, he did have a great end finish to the year last year after coming back from injury. But the big piece of that statement is that he was coming back from injury. He's always injured. And so he really hasn't had a crazy production year or full year of production in the NFL. It felt like a lot of money for a guy that I don't even think has put up in 1,000 yard season. But I guess that's just what you kind of have to do now. Guys like Romeo Dobbs get paid. Everyone just gets paid. So if they didn't do it, someone else would. But for his fantasy outlook and the people that see the hype in him, it's a good sign.
Yeah, yeah. And please, I know rankings already have it correct with Watson as the guy. Do not draft Golden thinking he will be the guy over Watson. He won't be.
Yeah.
Watson was like, I think top five in like yards per route run, things like that last year. So he was really good with the underlying stats. Miles Garrett, let's talk about that one. Traded to the Rams. I think at this point the Rams have to be the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. Like
Hmm.
that team is so good. And they also traded for Trent McDuffie this offseason too. So like that defense is kind of loaded. I think in a way maybe they run the ball a little more. I think Matthew Stafford is going to be in for some serious regression this year. I think the touchdowns come down. I think the yardage comes down. He is getting older as well. I think they're not going to try and lean on him as much as they did last year. I think that could also consider that when drafting Puka, consider that when drafting Devonte Adams. Um, but those two guys should still be unreal for fantasy, and I think the running backs both will have some value. On the other side of things, I think it doesn't really matter much for the Browns. They'll be trash anyways. Sorry, Browns fans.
No, I do like in terms of NFL move, it's tough to trade a Hall of Famer and the current best defensive player in the league, but it felt like it was heading that direction for so long.
Hmm.
and to be able to get a young stud like Jared Verse and a
Mm.
first round pick and a second round pick,
And a
it feels like
third.
in a third. So like for trading that caliber of player, it feels like they did okay. Um, and so I guess you could give them that, but like you said, it's not going to change their outlook for next year. And
No.
I don't know if I got on Twitter, but I'm almost positive that I saw something from Adam Schefter that it's more likely than not that Aaron Donald returns.
There is a lot of speculation about Aaron Donald
Um,
returning.
and so
So,
I don't know if Schefter would say that if there wasn't like he wasn't hearing things. And just imagine that with Aaron Donald and Miles Garrett,
oh man.
Trent McDuffie, like just a loaded defense. There's one more edge rusher I'm missing on that team. That's already Fisk, Brandon Fisk, like just
Yeah.
guys that they just have guys everywhere.
Yeah.
So that would be
Aaron
crazy.
Aaron Donald is 35. And how many years has he been out the league now? Is it one or
It
two?
feels like a lot. It feels like longer.
I think it must be two because it's Verse came in like immediately. They drafted Verse, and Verse has
Yeah.
been in the league. I want to say 2 years, so I think it's been 2 years. So I don't know. It's scary because it's Aaron Donald, but he's 35. He's 2 years out the league. Like
It would be fun. It would be
it would
fun
be a
for him
lot
to
of
come
fun.
back. Yeah,
Yeah.
but who knows?
Regardless, the Rams will be disgusting next year.
Yeah, no, definitely a Super Bowl front runner.
Yeah. All right. Last pieces of news, all related to the Giants. Um, yeah, they signed every old and mid receiver they could. Odell Beckham Jr., Braxton Berrios, and Juju Smith Schuster all within a span of like 2 hours. I think that means nothing for fantasy. I just wanted to bring it up because it's fun news. It's awesome to see Odell go back, but I don't think
Yeah.
any of them will do anything for fantasy. But I think if anything, that does maybe say like the neighbor's injury might be a bigger concern than we thought,
Mhm.
because they're now like scrambling to bring in guys. So
Yeah.
that's the only consideration. And then Russell Wilson also retired. So
Yeah.
it's about
No,
time.
I know. But I agree completely. It does say a lot more about neighbors, I think, than any of those guys.
Mhm.
Anytime a timeline's super shaky, like week one is uncertain, that never feels like a good sign because that means that even if they are at week one, they're not at 100%, or most likely means that. So definitely not a good sign. But I could see an Odell return week where we get a little 100
Yes.
yard or two touchdown game. Like I can imagine that, but I agree. No fantasy relevance for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's do the values. Um, Looking at last year, I went about 3 for 4. Big hit on Dak Prescott. He was going off the board QB 13, finished at QB 6. Pollard finished a couple spots higher. Juwan Jennings finished a couple spots higher than he was drafted. Vinny hit on Herbert, finished a couple spots higher. And then big hit, I'm going to give it on Tucker Kraft. So he went 2 for 4. I went 3 for 4. I know Tucker Kraft got his season cut short, but I mean that the way he started, that was a big hit for where he was going.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, let's get into these values because we got four each, one at each position to talk about. So we'll start with the quarterback position. I'm going right back to the QB 13. So last year I went with Dak, the QB 13. I'm going with the QB 13 of this year, Brock Purdy. Um, and Purdy is a guy where it's like it's all right. It never feels like great, like you're thrilled to get this guy. But last year he finished at the QB2 in points per game, despite only playing 9 games. So that's big. I think 8 if you take out that last week where also it was against Seattle and he did nothing. But he should be coming back, fully healthy season. We now have an improved supporting cast with Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, who we still got to wait for him to come back from injury, but you add Mike Evans. You also draft a receiver. So you have the first pick of the second round. I know it felt early for Dejon Stribling, but they drafted him that early for a reason. You got Ricky Pearsall hopefully coming back healthy. So there is that to consider. With the injuries, and Mike Evans is always injured, Kittle, CMC, like this could turn ugly very quickly. But if everybody is healthy, I think this could be one of the best receiving cores in the league. Um, so banking on that a little bit. But over the last 2 years, Purdy has tended to play very well in the good matchups. and not as well in tougher matchups. Like you can see based on like the colors on like sleeper, like the green, the good matchups he tends to play well in. And at first I'm looking through some of the schedule, and it is definitely harder this year, I will say. But last year they had the easiest schedule. This year they have the eighth easiest schedule. So that could be good news for Purdy. I think some of these matchups are definitely going to be tougher. But we look at some of these matchups still, the eighth overall, it's still good overall. And during the fantasy playoffs last year, Purdy threw for 11 touchdowns, ran for two more, so 13 total touchdowns in what, 3 games? That's a lot. And I think he runs more than we like to admit. I think that's a really underrated part of his game. During those 3 fantasy weeks, he finished at QB4, QB1, and QB1. You love to see that. So it's really hard to kind of look at him and say like, oh, QB 13. So like Dak, I was really bullish on, and that'll be kind of a trend with today's guys that I list off. Is like I'm not bullish on these guys like I was bullish on my values last year, but the supporting cast is just it's too good. Like Purdy is a good quarterback. He's top 10 in virtually like every metric. Like you look at every EPA metric, which is like your expected points and then like above or whatever. So like he's always like creating for the team, doing good things for the team and that's moving them down the field and like 13 touchdowns in 3 weeks is crazy. And he's QB2 in success rate as well. So he's actually like a very efficient, very good quarterback and I think he's much better than he's given credit for. So I don't love him, but I think at this point, like it's kind of a value. You look at some of the other names, and in this list, like he's going behind an injured Mahomes, he's going behind Dart, Trevor Lawrence, Dak. And I think he's kind of the last one of this kind of tier. It drops off after this. Stafford. Well, Stafford's old, can only throw the ball. I think there's serious regression coming. Bo Nix, nobody really likes Bo Nix. He threw a ton last year. I think he threw the most attempts in the league, but Bo Nix isn't nearly as exciting as Purdy. He's not very good. Goff, again, just doesn't run. Kyler, very unknown. So, like, some of these names, I think Purdy's just the last in that group, in that tier, where it's like, I just think he's a value for where he's going. Will he finish top five? No, I'm not saying that. But I think for QB 13, I think he's a good value, and I think you should be happy taking him if he falls to that tier for you.
Yeah, no, I like Purdy a lot. I feel like QB was the easiest position for me to pick a value because we've talked about it on past recent episodes, but there's just so much value
So much
there.
value. Yeah,
I was kind of decided between, and Purdy was definitely a guy that crossed my mind as well, just because of that offense always just having weapons. So, like you said, we've always preached good offenses produce fantasy points, and this is definitely an example of it.
for sure.
Um, so my value at quarterback, going around the same spot as Purdy, but it's going to be Jackson Dart. Currently has an ADP of 94, and then that makes him good for the QB 12 overall. My thought process on this one, last year I got burned, not really burned, but I was a little scared of Drake May, and he got all the hype, and he certainly lived up to it. And it was because of a lot of similar reasons that I see in Dart. I mean, when you take a look at the top 7 quarterbacks, you see Josh Allen, Lamar, Jaden, Drake May, Jalen Hurts. That's the majority of the top 7, and they all have something in common that they score a lot of points with their legs. And Dart showed he was very capable of that last year. And when I was looking into the numbers, and 9 out of the 12 full games he played, he scored 20 or more fantasy points. One was 19.4, but I'll give it to him at 20 plus. So that's a monster year, and that was good for the QB 14 overall with 3 missed games and also a dud where he put up 1 point, and that was a playoff week, so it screwed a lot of people. But so that's basically, I'm not. He played the whole game, so it's still a 1 point game. But 4 games where you can't factor in anything, he still finished as a QB 14, which is almost a QB 1. So in this range of QB 12 and almost basically the 9th round of the fantasy draft or late eighth, he legitimately has like potentially like top 5 QB upside. Now let's talk. Like I hyped him up a lot, but with that said, the neighbor's injury goes two ways. It's when he comes back, this will be the first time he'll be able to play with Malik Neighbors, as he didn't have Neighbors all of last season. So that's exciting, but the lingering injury isn't a great outlook, but I think we can all agree that Neighbors will be back at some point, and that only helps Jackson Dart. They signed Isaiah Likely. He gets Cam Scattergood back. When this offense is fully healthy, it's got a lot of weapons and a lot of guys that can help Jackson Dart succeed in the passing game more so than last year. And we know what he could do with his legs. So I was honestly a little surprised that, the hype wasn't really baked in yet as it kind of was. I guess Drake May was sort of in a similar spot last year where it never got too crazy where it was inside the top 10, but people were definitely they had him on on their radar and it paid off. So this is kind of a move similar to that one where I think this could really pay off, and it's really not much risk in the eighth round where you could take a more safer floor QB like a Stafford if you want, or just one of those got pocket passers later in the draft as with one of your last picks and pair him with Dart just as backup.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think he's got way more upside than Purdy, but like the two of them are kind of that back end of that tier. I think the
Mhm.
concerns with Dart is, he's still pretty raw in terms of talent. And Neighbors, how long is he going to be without Neighbors? He also doesn't have Wandale Robinson, so it's like, who's he actually throwing the ball to? I mean, is Darnell Mooney going to be his one for a while? So
Yeah,
there are serious concerns there, but honestly, as you're talking about, it kind of reminds me of I think this offense could look a lot like what the Ravens did. And Harbaugh's coming over. You have
yep,
you have Harbaugh there now. Matt Nagy, that sucks for them as the offensive coordinator, but I think Harbaugh's gonna be like a much more of a factor than he will. And then you look at what they did, and they were a run heavy team. And you could even say this kind of reminds me of the Eagles, like run heavy, throw the ball when you need to, and it's a guy who can run the ball. And look what it did for Hurts for the last number of years. Look what it's done for Lamar. Like, I just think it could end up being run heavy, which I get the concerns in passing, but like, I'm starting to kind of like this after you're talking about it. Like, it could be a run heavy offense with him running the ball a lot too.
yeah.
So,
In the great reminder about Harbaugh, like because he's had shown success with a fantasy QB that primarily rushes, or not primarily, but wins with his legs. But it also, like, I feel a little better about Neighbors potentially not starting the season because his receiving corp last that he had six fantasy success with wasn't good last year.
right.
So only adding Neighbors is only a benefit to him. So if he could keep it going with what he was doing last year.
Right. Yeah. We'll just have to see who takes the Wandale role for the time being until Neighbors
Yeah,
is healthy.
exactly.
I'm gonna stick with the Giants here for running back. I'm going with Cam Scattergood, currently going off the board at the 408 RB19, which honestly, when I did my rankings today, that's where I had him. But I think he's a value, and I'll discuss why. Like there is the concerns coming off the injury. I get that. So that is absolutely that's valid. That's all right for you to have that concerns. But in the 6 games as a starter without his injury, right? So, we're taking out week 1 where it was primarily Tracy too. He averaged 19.1 fantasy points a game, which would put him fifth among running backs in points per game, which is above James Cook, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry. Like, this puts him in elite company, 19 a game. And James Cook finished at like RB4 last year, RB5. Like, and this guy's getting drafted at the RB5. Chase Brown, Derrick Henry are getting drafted extremely highly. Derrick Henry, obviously, there's the age factor, so he's not as high as those other guys, but they're coming off the board. Chase Brown and James Cook is like top 10 running backs. And Scadaboo's going at RB19. Also, as I just mentioned, they're probably, going to go run heavy. So I think that is very much a situation. Both Scadaboo and Dart have said so. Harbaugh and Nagy like to lean on the run as well. And, the neighbor concerns. So I talked about neighbors. Like, they'll probably lean on the run quite a bit. So it'll be a run first offense. The Giants were also heavily rumored to add a running back through free agency or the draft, and they didn't. Like Ken Walker was a name, right? Like they were potentially gonna get Jeremiah Love. Like they were going for big names, and they didn't add a damn guy at all. So I think they have confidence in Scadaboo and where Scadaboo's at with the injury. So I think that's huge. I think the volume should be there as well. Like he looks healthy too. He's like doing backflips. You can look it up. He's like doing backflips now. And like I really think the volume, he had volume quite a bit last year when you're looking at those games he started. Um, yeah, also with Neighbors' injury concerns and no other really good wide receiver until somebody shows up and Wandale is gone, I think he's going to see some receiving usage. Like people just think of Scadaboo as this bowling ball who's just going to run the ball like crazy. But he was the RB9 in target share last year. 13%. I mean, 13% is really good for a running back. And you take out Neighbors, you take out Wandale Robinson. Could we see this go up to 16%? Like, this could end up being like he could be a true workhorse here. I mean, RB9 in target share is huge. He's the number 5 in running backs in fantasy points per game. I mean, the upside is through the roof. And I know it's a small sample size, but I think this offense is going to use him a lot more. I think he's going to be an RB2 with a lot of upside. I mean, I feel like this is his floor, and that's why I feel like it's a value. Like, if I'm to go pull up the running back ADP real quick, like some of the guys going ahead of him, like you got Javonte Williams. All right, like Javonte does some receiving work. That's cool. Like Travis Etienne. I mean, this is a new offense for him. Like, what is this going to look like for Etienne? He wasn't actually that efficient last year. Josh Jacobs might get suspended. Kyron Williams, is he going to split time entirely with Blake Corum? Brees Hall, like I could just keep going. I really think this is his floor, Scadaboo. I think there's so much upside. I think he's going to be a strong RB2, like somebody I'd be willing to get. And I'm probably not going to shoot him up my rankings, but I think he will start to climb as the offseason goes. I think we're going to hear a lot of buzz about him. He's being drafted really low.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a name that for some reason I think it's because of the injury in his first year so early on. Like, of course, we can't call him injury prone yet because he's had one NFL season, and that's just not the case. But it just does still kind of linger in my head. But you also point out that like you can't ignore the stretch that he went on when he was healthy. I mean, he was unreal. He was scoring touchdowns, catching the ball, rushing the ball.
Yeah.
He was doing everything. So, and that's what he did in college too. So that's always a good sign to like when a player looks is producing similar to what they did in college, where most of these guys produce at an elite level in college, which is why they're in the NFL. Yeah, no, I like it. I do. I for some reason, like I said, I still kind of do get that uneasiness about drafting him yet, or right now at least, but um, definitely convinced me that like the Giants offense could be something to be excited about when they all get healthy. And like no one else took over that role when Scadaboo went down last year. No one really stepped up to the plate. So that's a good sign for him as well that he's walking right back in to be a potential
Yeah.
bell cow.
Yeah, I think they run the offense through him, right? At least
Yep.
until Neighbors is back. So, yeah, I just feel like it's his floor. Like, I'm kind of with you too, which is why I ranked him at RB19, which is where he's going. But at the same time, it just like RB5 in points per game and then 13% target share. It just feels like, as much as we feel bad about it, the stats just tell a different story. And it's like, it's got to be around his floor at RB19. I mean, some of
Yep.
the names going behind him too, it's like you cannot drop him any lower, in my opinion. So that's
Mhm.
how I feel there on Scat. Who you got at running back?
So my value at running back, based on how you've been talking about him, seems kind of like you're not as high on him as I potentially am. But it's going to be Josh Jacobs. Currently going at let's see, I had ADP of 30 and pick 39, and art that's good for RB 16 overall. Of course, the most recent news on him isn't great, but it is horrible. But in a lot of cases, when stuff like this pops up, it does kind of create a value window in fantasy because there's people think suspension, people think character issues, wherever the case is. This really came as a surprise, like where Josh Jacobs has been, pretty unproblematic in his years in Green Bay. He had a RB5 finish 2 years ago, then an RB12 finish last year, where you know, he did everything. He was the bell cow. He was, catching the ball, rushing the ball, especially in that first year. And last year, he was doing the same off to a great start again, where up until week 10, he was, I don't know his exact averages, but he was up there in the top five RBs for sure. And then he had an injury, and that kind of decreased his usage. For the rest of the season, which I know for sure didn't make managers happy as we hit the playoffs. His production really started to tick down. Um, that is concerning, but the way the offseason played out for the Packers, I feel like just continues to be in his benefit. They didn't add at running back. They let Emmanuel Wilson walk, who was the big change of pace guy for Jacobs and did well in that role. But Marshawn Lloyd is there, like we mentioned, and Chris Brooks. Marshawn Lloyd has been a name for the past 3 years where people are saying he's a breakout candidate and he just can't stay healthy. So I can't, view him as a threat until that's the case and he's able to stay on the field. They let two receivers walk, or they traded one in Dontavian Wicks, and then they let Romeo Doubs walk. So opportunities are opening up in the offense where it seems to me that they're clearly have him as a focal point of the offense and are going to use him a lot once again. So with two RB1 finishes in his 2 years there, and to be outside in the top 16 or at RB16 in PPR formats, it just feels low for me with the upside there. And if I could get him in a draft at my RB2 or potentially my RB1 with two stud receivers, and I go in the first 2 rounds, I feel really good about that team because he does offer a solid floor where he scores a lot of touchdowns. He's the goal line back. No competition there. He's been used in the passing game more in Green Bay than he has been in his career. So he's a true bell cow or potential bell cow based on like the decrease in usage at the end of last year. But he really is the only bell cow that I see, like true pass production wise bell cow in that range. You mentioned like the potential of a guy like Scatabo doing that or being a bell cow. Well, he already is. And he kind of is in that similar range. Yeah, right next to Scatabo and Javonte Williams and Kyron Williams, who all kind of have some guy lingering behind them, which Jacobs, as of right now, currently doesn't. So I like the spot for Jacobs right now. And who knows if this legal stuff is playing into his value currently. I don't really think it is. I think people are just kind of down on the lack of production towards the end of the year. But I'm kind of in him for another big year from him.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny. Like we did a couple episodes ago, the start bench cut, and I think I started Jacobs and you cut Jacobs.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not out on Jacobs. I'm just baking in the value, like the potential risk, right? Like this guy
Mhm.
could miss half the season. He could miss the full season, and there's just so much
I
on.
don't
There's
think so.
I doubt it as well, but like I'm just saying, like with the potentials of like what it could end up looking like, I mean he was arrested too, so it's not like this is completely under the rug and he's gonna fight it and he's gonna be, innocent. So I think there is something could turn up and hopefully it's very minimal games if a suspension at all. But if everything clears up, I'm completely with you. Like if we take
Mhm.
out the legal things for a minute, he's going 5 spots ahead of Scadaboo, who I just brought up, and he is a bell cow. Like there's nobody behind him. And I
Mhm.
just looked up just to check for you, as you said, like weeks 1 through 10 were huge for Jacobs. He was the RB6 in points per game throughout that time, and he
Yep.
was averaging like 19.6 a game, which that's better than what I just brought up for Scadaboo. So like that, these two guys, I think both of them are like massive values right now, like in the middle of the fourth round. So
Mhm.
yeah, I like this pick a lot as well. Let's go to the wide receiver. Now, this is a guy I'm really not like bullish on once again. Um, but my guy at wide receiver, Jameson Williams, he's going at the 502, pick 50 overall, wide receiver 25. So this could be your second, this could be your third wide receiver. You're getting Jameson Williams here. And, the first thing with him, I get it. The ups and downs are frustrating. And, but from week 6 on last year, he was unreal. Like he had 2 duds, and I get it. This guy could literally drop 0 on you on any given week. And I think that's probably why his ADP is so low. But I mean, he was so good from week to week basis. Like you could just start him like very confidently week in, week out. And if you got the dud, that sucks. But otherwise, like you were probably winning weeks because he was putting up over 20. So I think if you can kind of get away from, oh, well, he had zero, like think about what he has done. I think there's a lot of value here. This Lions offense is really good. He's attached to Jared Goff. He's a great QB. Like, I don't think we talk about it enough. He doesn't run, so he's not exciting for fantasy, but he's a great QB. Um, they have this, it's been a good offense for years. Even without Ben Johnson last year, it was still good. Um, New offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing. I can only imagine is an upgrade from last year. Like it was bad enough Dan Campbell started calling plays, and that did get Jamison Williams more involved. So maybe people are like, well, Drew Petzing likes the tight ends more. I get it. Maybe Laporta does get involved again, but I can't imagine Isaac TeSlaa starts taking over Jamison Williams. I mean, they extended him last year, and this guy's really good. So I really think Jamison Williams is going to be on the field a lot. Also, just a little ad, the Lions have the easiest schedule in the league this year, which that's great, right? You'll always take that. And despite the extremely rough start, he still finished at wide receiver 12 overall last year, like as a wide receiver one, despite being terrible. Like, I'll look up in a minute, like, exactly what he did, like, finishing wise, but, or throughout like those set number of weeks. I'll figure it out. But yeah, he was really good. And to make things crazier, he finished as wide receiver 22 the year before on only 15 games. And for some reason, he's being drafted after both of his last 2 years of finishes. So I really don't get that. Like, I'll gladly take him over Terry McLaurin, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, guys who are going like right before or behind him. And like, again, like I'm not super bullish on the guy, but he finished as a wide receiver 24 2 years ago, and we're drafting him after that. Like it doesn't make sense to me. I'm pulling up right now. I'm gonna figure out exactly when he started doing well. I said week 6, right?
I have it up right here. It was week
Week,
6 he put up 16 and then had a 0 after that, but then it was right
yeah,
after the bye he started to put it together.
yeah,
9 through 15
yeah,
he was
yeah.
really good.
I mean, count week 6 where he put up 18, right? I got PPR points here. I don't know if Fantasy Pros is doing it differently, but count week 6 on. Week 7 was a dud, 0 points. Week 12 was a dud, 0 points. Like week 17, only 5 points. Still averaged 15 a game, which was good for the wide receiver 8 with those two zeros in it. So, I mean, I just think like this guy has insane upside, and for him at wide receiver 25, that absolutely feels like the bottom of his floor. Like I can't get past that when he finished at wide receiver 24 the year before. You know what I mean? It's like that feels really low to be drafting him behind that finish when he finished at wide receiver 12 last year. So just get past the frustrations. Huge value.
Yeah, no, honestly, as you're trying to point things out, he in my head before you started talking, he definitely fits the build of like that boomer bust guy, like you were mentioning. But it was a little underrated that he put together that really productive and consistent stretch last year for 7 weeks about. So that was good to see. Like you said, I think it is a good spot for a value because of the fact that what he's capable of when putting it all together. If you could hit that as your potential wide receiver 3 in a draft or wide receiver 2 with two really good running backs and a receiver already, however your build is, he could be a guy that like wins you a league. So it is a big if, but taking the chance on him in the 5th round or I guess late 4th um, is not a bad idea. And I do like the idea of it.
Yeah, and let's say Laporta does get more involved and he has a year. So JMO falls off. He's not the wide receiver 12. Let's say he falls 8 spots to wide receiver 20. You're still getting a 5 wide receiver
Yeah.
like discount on him. And if we look at the actual like where exactly what pick from wide receiver, it's a 10 pick difference. Like you're getting a 10 pick discount on what he's finishing at. Like if he finishes at wide receiver 20. So I think it's just it feels like his floor. But I won't take up any more time on JMO. Go ahead and talk about your wide receiver.
Yeah, so my receiver is another guy that we've talked about briefly at the beginning of this episode, but it's going to be Jalen Waddle, who right now has an ADP of 48, and that makes the wide receiver 23 overall. Honestly, when I was making this pick, I already talked about, but I read it as a third and fourth round pick in the trade, or as the compensation for being traded. And I was questioning that a little bit. I was like, wow, that feels like not a lot. But now the fact that I just understood that it's a first, third, and fourth makes this pick even I like makes me like this pick even more. Obviously, a big upgrade in offense by being traded to Denver. Miami was a very run heavy team, and obviously the quarterback troubles all year with Tua, and then whoever else was filling in while he was out didn't help Waddle. But he he did have a productive season through the first 10 weeks in a brutal offense. He was very consistent, didn't have many duds. And after that week 10, it did get a little ugly at points, but it was a brutal offense to be in. So you can't blame just Waddle entirely. But now he goes to Denver, who has the fourth most passing attempts in the or had the fourth most passing attempts in the league last year. Very pass happy offense who likes to run the ball as well, but they spread it around well. It is an elite offense, I think you could say, in a lot of ways. Bo Nix is a lot of people's pick to take a big step forward this year, potentially kind of fits that build of a rushing capable quarterback who can sling it too. Will throw it 40 plus times a game at points. He just slings it around. Sean Payton offense, a lot to like there. Um, you know, there is Cortland Sutton there, who you can't just disregard. He is a very capable receiver. But I think the fact that they traded a first for Waddle, um, he's only 27 years old. That feels underrated to me as well. When I saw that, I was like, wow, so he's still in his prime years. Like he's still got a lot of juice left in the tank. He has the speed, and he's had a top 10 fantasy finish with the Dolphins. I think he was 5 overall one year, a few years ago. So he's been there before. And a lot of this just feels like an opportunity for crazy value and potentially a wide receiver one at the price of currently the wide receiver 23. So in a lot of ways, kind of feels similar to Jameson Williams, where I don't know if we'll see as many duds. Like that's kind of the bright side to me of they are going right next to each other in ADP or maybe a couple spots away from each other. But I feel like there could be a better floor for Waddle in this sort of high powered offense where, you know, big plays will happen, but if he can put together consistent floors, we're looking at a potential wide receiver one finish outside the top 20 right now. So I like the opportunity for Waddle a lot and, feels like a good value right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know why. I just don't love it. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just the feeling of last year with Waddle. Like, he just
Yeah.
doesn't feel great. But as you say that, like, Cortland Sutton finished at wide receiver 13 last year, and it wasn't a very good season. So, Waddle's a better receiver. Like, he could come in right away. Like, I do think he'll be the one in this offense over Sutton. So I think, yeah, I think you make some good points. They're a pass happy offense. Bo Nix is probably a better quarterback at this point than Tua. So I think it could end up being really well. I think you got a good point there. Like it might be their floor.
Mm-hmm.
Tight end, last position here. This is a weird one because I really don't like this guy in general. Like for fantasy, like I've talked about him regressing from a touchdown standpoint, but my value at tight end is Dallas Goedert, currently going at the back end of the 11th, like nearly a 12th round pick. Tight end 14. That it feels late, and I'll get into why. It's way too good of value. AJ Brown has been officially traded, which could mean his ADP rises a bit. I mean, I did this, my values last week, like right when the trade happened almost. So I was like, maybe the ADP hasn't adjusted yet. Nope, it's about the exact same. I'm like, all right, well, that makes this even a better value. So I think he's the immediate second option on the team behind Devonta Smith. And I know Lemon should carve out a role at some point, and maybe Goddard becomes kind of the three. But I don't, even if Lemon does carve out a role, I don't anticipate him all of a sudden getting AJ Brown type value. I think a lot of that kind of target share goes to Goddard a bit. So, for a team that doesn't throw that much, 20% target share is really good for a tight end, and I think it could even go up. I expect his touchdowns to come down a bit from, the 11 he had, but they utilized him a lot in the red zone in the middle of the field. Like that's hurts where he throws. And so again, could be good for Lemon, but I think they use Goddard. It was kind of a weird like holdout situation, not holdout, but like he held out from signing with another team and then he like decided to come back on a 1 year deal. Like they made it work. Like I think it was very clear they wanted him and he wanted to be there. So I think this is good. That's good news. And the target share could increase from 20%. He's utilized in the red zone, so the touchdown opportunities are there. He's got the chance to get a lot of opportunity, and he's almost like a 12th round pick. It's just a great shot to take. I don't love a lot of tight ends this year, so if you're going the late round route, this is a guy I think a lot of people might avoid too, which means he could be there for you. And like I'll gladly take him over Kincaid, who's going ahead of him. Kincaid has never been anything for the Bills. I think he's had like a 13% target share, which is nothing. And he's going ahead of him, and Kelsey's going a whole round ahead of him too. Like Kelsey, when Rice is on the field, is terrible. In terms of like the tight ends overall and the draft spot, like I'm all in on Goddard this year, which is so weird because I don't love Goddard in general.
Yeah, no, I mean, as you say, I was just taking a look at the tight end rankings, and the tight end position does feel a lot deeper than past years. Like, guys like Kittle being at 11, where of course there's the injury concern, but like that feels low. And like you mentioned, Goddard being at 14 after scoring 11 touchdowns last year, it just like I don't know. If you're going to draft like a guy like Kincaid above him, I'd personally rather have Goddard. I think. It sounds crazy, but like the opportunity is there. I feel like he kind of feels like the left out piece with this after AJ Brown trade that people aren't really talking about because of potentially Eli Stowers getting drafted there, which he could play a role. But I think what we've seen is that the for rookie tight ends has a lot of the times been to have a lesser role in your first year than really build into it, which I think will happen for Stowers too. So I
Yeah.
think he's safe for another good year and a big target share, like you said.
Yeah. And, I think Stowers is like a different kind of build at like the tight end position too. So that's something to consider. Like I'll take him above Jake Ferguson. Personally, I'll do that. Like Kittle, if Kittle's not healthy by week 1 and we know he's going to miss time, I'll take him above Kittle. Obviously if Kittle's healthy and he's good to go, I'm definitely taking Kittle. But,
Yeah.
it feels like there's just crazy. Anyways, go ahead with
Yeah.
your tight end.
All right. So my tight end I didn't really originally take into account the criteria for this
Oh,
position.
I didn't
Our
even mention the criteria.
Well, I'll also go through it right now, just for everyone's knowledge of what we were kind of basing it off of is so the criteria for our value picks is it had to be a QB inside the top 20, an RB, a running back inside the top 36, a wide receiver inside the top 36, and a tight end inside the top 15. So I guess in this case, my tight end pick could be characterized as a sleeper because he is outside the top 15, but
Mhm.
by one spot. So we both kind of agreed that it would be all right for this episode to be considered a value. And that guy is Arande Gadsden, who is currently going at, let me see, a pick 139, and that's for tight end 16 overall. Now, I kind of, wanted to go with him as a value because this is kind of crazy to me that he is this low. And I guess it makes sense with some of the depth at tight end. But last year, he doesn't even feel like a breakout for me this year because he kind of had a mini breakout for 4 weeks where people were really picking this guy up, starting him, and for good reason. During that 4 week stretch, which was kind of in the middle of the season, he put up 377 receiving yards in 4 games. In one of those games, he had 164 receiving yards, and that's a tight end we're talking about. That's not normal. That was a really crazy stretch. Now he couldn't sustain it. That was clear, but there was a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, and there still are. There's Ladd, Quentin Johnston. Is Keenan still there, right?
No, Keenan.
No, no.
I mean, there's obviously always a chance Keenan walks back in
Yeah,
the door, but
yeah, but so Keenan's not there as of right now. But they did sign in Njoku, and that's a piece of it that maybe is hurting his value currently. I guess there's not like a door wide open to just step in, be the tight end one, and get a bunch of targets. But me personally, I think we've talked about it when the Njoku news came out. He doesn't really scare me as someone that's going to take a large chunk of things away from Gadsden. The signs that kind of point towards that for me are the fact that he took a while to get signed. He didn't get signed for a lot of money. And that in the NFL terms, when you look into that stuff, it does usually say a lot about how the rest of the league values a player. And he had an injury riddled last year. So for me, that doesn't really bother me for Gadsden's production this upcoming year. And we saw the potential there. And I haven't even mentioned the fact that Mike McDaniel is now the OC there. And this, we've seen what he could do with the tight end position with Jonnu Smith putting together that career year for a fantasy perspective and just for his own personal career. And then kind of a miracle with Darren Waller last year, where he had a really good stretch of games too. So McDaniel knows how to utilize and looks to want to utilize the tight end position. And with such a young talent like Gadsden and what the ability he showed last season, it hard for me to believe that he'll ignore that. So I think he gets involved. Maybe it's not right off the rip, but I think at some point he will absolutely return on this tight end 16 ranking right now and finish well above that, where I could see him finishing as a tight end one pretty easily.
mm, yeah, it's interesting. It was like a short stretch, and honestly, I wasn't really thinking much about Gazin as like a potential guy, but yeah, like you make a good point here, where there's like a lot of upside and not that much risk when
Mm-hmm.
taking this guy. And in Njoku, I looked up his age too. He'll be 30 before the season starts. He's turning 30 in about a month,
Yep.
so factor that in as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think you make some good points there. Definitely, I might get in on the Gadsden train now as a value for sure.
And it could be a situation where, like, it is one of your last picks in the entire draft. So you could, go with someone like a Kittle where he's falling late in the draft, and then go and get a Gadsden where maybe there's some dud weeks, but he's like a security pick with so much upside than anyone else you could pick it with your last pick.
Hmm. For sure. Hey, hopefully we do a good like 5 out of 8 or better again with the values.
Yeah.
But yeah, we kind of did well last year, so we'll see how we do this year. That'll wrap this episode up. A lot of fun. I like talking values. It's always like and it brings up these interesting names. Like neither one of us was into Goddard, and then we bring up Goddard. I don't think either one of us was like that bullish on Jackson Dart, but here we are. Like
Mhm.
it's fun to do these and kind of look into these guys a little more just based on where they're going. You might not love the player, but they might provide a lot of value just based on where they're going. And that's the important thing when it comes to drafts. Don't overpay, or, like overdraft guys. Don't let guys go too far either. And some of these guys you can let them slide right into your lap late. So, um, pause. But yeah,
On
well,
that
it's
note, let's
on that note, we will be doing with last week missing, we may have the plan is 2 episodes next week, so we may bless you guys with one extra episode next week. Busts is definitely coming up next, and then sleepers will be after that. So we have the values, busts, and sleeper picks as we did last year, which are a lot of fun. So busts will be the first one we do next week, and then sleepers after that. So that's kind of the plan. Same criteria with that Vinny mentioned with like where they're going, top 20, top 36 running backs and receiver, and then top 15 tight end. And then the sleepers will be outside that range. So that'll be a lot of fun to talk about. But
Mhm.
on that note, we'll see y'all in the next episode.
Peace.